The acrid smoke of burning metal and flesh hung thick in the corridors of mining station Echo 7. Each breath was a struggle, every heartbeat an unwanted reminder of the massacre that had unfolded only hours ago. Elias Kane pressed his back against a scorched bulkhead, the weight of a half-spent medical kit slung over his shoulder, and his free hand clutching a blood-slicked sidearm he hadn't wanted to use. He'd been stationed on Echo 7 for 3 quiet months, assigned to treat exhaustion injuries, mining accidents, and the occasional brawl over stolen rations. But that illusion of safety shattered at 0600 hours, when the Zalani strike team breached the outer hull. They moved like ghosts, surgical and silent, leaving a trail of corpses and flickering lights behind them. Now, 12 hours later, the lights were out entirely. Elias crouched low and moved through a maintenance corridor, avoiding the bloodied main passages. His boots crunched softly on shattered plating as he kept his flashlight low, beam cutting shadows through the smoke. He was alone. Probably the last human alive on Echo 7. The emergency beacon in the comms wing was his only hope of calling for help, but he knew it was a long shot. If the Zalani hadn't destroyed it, they'd surely be monitoring the frequencies. Every step toward it was a gamble with death. Then he heard something. Not the sharp, disciplined steps of a Zalani patrol, nor the ambient groans of the station slowly dying. It was a sound more personal. A moan, deep, broken, undeniably alive. Not human. He paused, heart in his throat. Slowly, flashlight steady, he edged toward the noise. Just past a collapsed section of corridor, he found her. A Zalani warrior. Pinned beneath a collapsed girder, purple blood pooling beneath her. Her limbs were longer than human, her skin smooth with a blue-violet iridescence. Her breathing was ragged and shallow. The side of her face was bruised, and her right arm was twisted unnaturally. Elias knew her the second he saw the blood-marked armor. Vela Korath. Every soldier, medic, and civilian in the outer systems knew her name. The Crimson Blade. The Butcher of Centauri. Responsible for over 2,000 confirmed deaths. There were reward posters in every outpost. Killing her would be a favor to the galaxy. His fingers tightened on the pistol. One shot. No one would question it. She stirred, her eyes fluttering open. Pale amber eyes, not the burning gold often seen in propaganda. They were soft with pain, clouded with confusion. She didn't speak. Didn't scream. Just met his eyes and wheezed. And for a moment, she wasn't a monster. She wasn't the destroyer of convoys or the commander of death squads. She was a dying woman. A patient. Elias holstered his weapon with a curse. "Don't make me regret this," he muttered, kneeling beside her. He began assessing her injuries. 3 broken ribs. Punctured lung. Internal bleeding. Left arm fractured and partially crushed. She had maybe an hour, tops. Digging into his kit, Elias prepped a low-dose coagulant. Human medicine, but with enough overlap in the basic xenophysiology, it might hold. He worked fast, cleaning the wound, applying pressure foam, and injecting the stabilizer. Her body jerked as the chemicals took hold. "This is going to hurt," he told her, more out of habit than hope that she understood. Vela's mouth twitched. Maybe a grimace. Maybe the hint of a smile. She didn't try to stop him. 20 minutes later, Elias had rigged a stretcher from nearby piping and a section of torn conduit cover. It wasn't elegant, but it would move her. The station's upper levels were crawling with Zalani patrols. But the old tunnels beneath, mining shafts predating the station's modernization, were forgotten, dark, and mostly collapsed. If he could get her down there, they might have a chance. He dragged her slowly, carefully, inch by inch. Her breathing was uneven, but the stabilizers were holding. They passed 2 human corpses on the way, people Elias knew. A mechanic named Rourke. A nurse named Janessa. He didn't look away. Vela did. Maybe that meant something. Maybe not. The makeshift shelter he found was a half-collapsed repair hub in the lower tunnels. Powered only by a cracked emergency battery. The air was thin, but breathable. There were enough rations in the wall unit for 3 days, if they stretched them. Elias laid her down on a cot scavenged from the rubble. He checked her pulse. Slower. But steady. He stared down at her, this monster of myth, now weak and trembling beneath his hands. His hands. Hands meant for healing. He sat beside her and leaned back against the cold stone wall, exhausted beyond words. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But today, he had made a choice. He had saved the enemy. And for reasons he didn't understand, he didn't regret it. She woke the next morning. Her first words were a question. Why? Not a plea. Not an accusation. Just a breathless, honest question. Elias looked up from where he was crushing ration tabs into drinkable paste. Because you were dying. I am Vela Korath, she rasped. I have killed your people. Burned your colonies. Yes. I know. Then why didn't you kill me? He met her eyes. Because I'm not like you. She looked away. But not before he saw something flicker in her eyes. Guilt. Or maybe grief. For the next 2 days, Elias tended to her wounds. He spoke only when necessary. She watched him closely. They were strangers. Enemies. But something was changing. When he slept, she didn't kill him. When she coughed in pain, he gave her water. By the 3rd day, her breathing was stronger. She could sit up for short periods. She asked again. Do all your people heal their enemies? No. Then why you? He shrugged. I took an oath. It didn't come with a species clause. Her laugh was dry. Bitter. My people would have left you to die. I know. She didn't defend it. That night, they sat across from one another, drinking weak nutrient broth. Tell me, Vela said, her voice low, what is Earth like? Elias hesitated. You wouldn't believe me. Try me. He smiled despite himself. It's green. Not everywhere, but in the places that matter. There are cities, too big, too loud. But there are forests. Oceans. Sunsets that turn the sky orange and purple and gold. She was silent, absorbing every word. And your people? Messy. Hopeful. Angry. Kind. We don't always make sense. But sometimes we try. My people, she said quietly, were bred not to try. Only to win. He didn't respond. Didn't need to. Her eyes found his. You risked your life for me. That makes no sense. It doesn't have to, he said. It just has to matter. She looked away. Maybe it does. By the 4th night, they weren't quite strangers. Vela spoke of her childhood on Korath Prime. Of being taken at 7 for warrior training. Of never seeing her parents again. We are not raised for love, she said, eyes hollow. Only legacy. That sounds lonely. It is. And he spoke of Catherine. His wife. A teacher. Killed during the first wave of Zalani expansion. Vela didn't apologize. But she said, I regret her absence. That was enough. On the 5th day, Vela tried to stand. Elias caught her as she stumbled. Their bodies touched. Only for a second. But the silence that followed was charged. He stepped back. She didn't move away. That night, they didn't speak. But when they lay down, it was closer. Not touching. But close enough to feel each other's breath in the dark. Somewhere far above them, war still raged. But in that forgotten tunnel, a different battle was being fought. And for the first time in a long time, Elias Kane believed he might win something worth having. The sixth morning in the tunnels was quiet, eerily so. Elias Kane woke before Vela, sitting up slowly, the ache in his back from sleeping against cold stone a small price to pay for survival. The emergency light above flickered weakly, casting their hidden chamber in a pale yellow hue. He glanced toward the cot where Vela lay, her chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. It was strange. He no longer saw her as the butcher of Centauri. Not as a war criminal. Not even as an alien. He saw her as someone who had stayed. Who hadn't killed him when she could have. Someone who listened. Her eyes opened, catching his gaze. "You watch me when I sleep," she said softly, her voice rough from days of low oxygen and recovery. "You breathe funny," he replied with a smirk. "Thought you might be dying." Again. She chuckled, and it was a sound he hadn't expected, light, amused, almost human. "My people say it is the breath of healing," she said. "Though we rarely let it reach this stage. How are you feeling?" "Better," she shifted, wincing slightly but sitting up. "Strong enough to move if we must." He nodded. "We might have to. Sooner than we'd like." She noticed the worry etched in his face. "You heard something." "Last night," he admitted. "Echoes. In the upper vents." I couldn't make out the language, but it wasn't human. "Not anymore." Vela's jaw tightened. "They're looking for survivors. They'll find us eventually." Vela looked down at her arm, still bruised but functional. Her eyes narrowed with thought. "We could move to the older service levels. They're unstable, but the Zilani don't trust them. They might not follow." "Unstable as in collapsing?" "Yes." Elias sighed. "Sounds perfect." The journey through the secondary tunnels was arduous. Elias carried the supplies, Vela moved ahead, slower than before but steadier with each hour. The deeper they went, the colder it became. The walls here were unpolished rock, scored with tool marks from mining decades past. Strange roots pushed through cracks in the ceiling, fed by some underground moisture. Once, Vela paused. She placed a hand on the wall, then knelt, her body trembling. "Are you all right?" "Yes," she said after a long pause. "This place reminds me of my home. Not the surface cities, but the underhalls. Where we trained. Where we slept in stone cells and dreamt of stars we weren't yet allowed to see." Elias crouched beside her. "Was it hard?" "Yes. But we didn't know it then. Hardship was all we knew. Compassion was weakness. Questions were failure." He studied her face. "You ask questions now." She looked at him. "You make me want to." He didn't speak. Just helped her to her feet. Later, in a small chamber with ancient mining gear strewn about like relics, they rested. Elias worked by the dim emergency light, tuning the shortwave receiver he'd salvaged from the comms array during their escape. "Still no signal," he muttered. "We may be too deep. We're running out of options." She watched him for a moment. "You have someone waiting for you?" she asked quietly. "Not anymore. I had a sister. On Mars. But she left for a colonist mission 6 years ago. No word since. And no partner?" He shook his head. "Catherine was the last." Vela lowered her gaze. "I am sorry. You keep saying that. Because I keep finding new things to regret." He smiled faintly. "I never thought I'd hear the Crimson Blade apologize." "Neither did I." That night, the tension shifted. They sat beside each other on a raised platform near a heat vent. Vela pulled her blanket tighter. "You still see me as your enemy?" she asked without looking at him. He hesitated. "I don't know what I see." "Not anymore." She turned to him, her amber eyes glowing softly in the dark. Then let me say what you won't. You saved me. Not once. But every day since. You tend to me. Speak kindly. Treat me like something more than a monster. Why? Elias stared at her. Because somewhere between fixing your ribs and arguing about tunnel maps, I forgot you were supposed to be the villain. Because when you ask about Earth or laugh at my terrible jokes, I see someone I don't want to lose. Vela said nothing for a long time. Then, very softly, she whispered, I don't want to lose you either. The silence stretched between them like a thread ready to snap. Then she reached out. Her hand touched his. And he didn't pull away. The next day brought danger. While scouting ahead, Vela spotted movement. A Zalani scout unit, 2 warriors and a drone. She hurried back. We have to move. Now. Where? Down. There's a shaft. It's deep, and it leads to the submines. Almost no one remembers them. Are you sure it's safe? Not remotely. They moved fast. The shaft was narrow and steep. Vela went first, descending with the aid of a half-rusted ladder. Elias followed, heart pounding. They reached the bottom in near pitch darkness. After a tense hour of navigating collapsed tunnels, they found a small maintenance alcove with a sealed door. This used to be an air pump station, Vela said, brushing dust from the panel. Can it be powered? Possibly. It took an hour of careful rewiring, but she got it working. A dim light flared overhead. They were safe. For now. In that tiny space, something bloomed. The walls of war cracked a little more. They shared stories. Laughs. Hope. They didn't speak of the past or the inevitable future. Just of now. On the 9th night, as they lay side by side beneath salvaged blankets, Elias turned to her. When this ends, what happens to you? I don't know. What if we ran? Somewhere past the neutral zone. Vela didn't answer. But she reached for his hand in the dark. And squeezed. By the 10th day underground, Elias Kane could barely remember what fresh air felt like. The tunnels had grown colder, quieter. The only things keeping the creeping weight of isolation from crushing him completely were Vela's quiet breathing beside him at night, and the strange calm that came with her presence. You're pacing again, Vela murmured from her seat atop a collapsed support strut. It helps me think, Elias said. It helps you worry. He stopped, ran a hand through his hair. I think we have 12 hours at best. If your people sweep this far down, they'll find us. They will, Vela sounded certain, her voice like steel behind silk. I want you to come with me, he said, suddenly. She blinked. What? Past the neutral line. There are systems that don't care what uniform you wore. We can disappear. Make a life. She stood slowly, her expression unreadable. You would abandon your people. I already have, he said. They think I'm dead. And you know what? Maybe they were right. Maybe the version of me that believed in sides and uniforms and orders died back on the surface. What's left is someone who wants peace. And you. Vela stepped closer. You don't understand what you're asking. Desertion for me means disgrace. I would be stripped of my family line. Forgotten in our chronicles. But you'd be alive. We'd be together. I would never return. I would never speak my name again. Then speak a new one. Start over. With me. She looked down at his hand, reaching toward her. Then back up at him. You asked me to trade my entire life for a dream. Not a dream. A choice. She didn't answer him that night. Instead, they sat in silence. Close, but not touching. Words unspoken filled the space between them. That night, as they lay side by side beneath salvaged blankets, Elias turned to her again. "Do you believe we can make it?" "I believe that the only things worth doing are those that feel impossible," she said. Her hand brushed against his, fingers tracing the lines of his palm. He looked over, meeting her gaze. "You once said compassion was weakness," he whispered. "And now? I think it's our only strength." She leaned closer. "Then let it make us strong together." Her lips met his, not as a warrior, not as an enemy, but as a woman unlearning everything she'd been taught. They broke camp before midday. Vela guided them through a narrow channel between storage caverns. As they crossed a ventilation shaft, they heard the unmistakable echo of bootsteps above. "They're closer," Elias whispered. Vela pulled him into a side shaft and activated a sensor trap. The air shimmered briefly before vanishing. "They'll pass us." "Maybe. If they don't, then I fight. And you run." "Not without you." "Don't argue." "Not now." The scouts passed. Close enough that Elias could see the shimmer of their armor. But the trap held. The moment passed. They collapsed behind an old control station, breathing hard. "Do you trust me?" Vela asked. "Yes. Enough to follow me into exile?" Elias didn't hesitate. "Yes." She closed her eyes. Then opened them with new resolve. "Then we run." They spent the next 20 hours navigating collapsed freight shafts, bypassing proximity alarms, and sabotaging trail markers. Vela knew her people's patterns, knew how to make their sensors lie. Elias followed her without question. In the deepest level, they reached a forgotten maintenance dock. A small vessel, long decommissioned, lay in partial disrepair. Its hull scratched and scorched. Vela moved to the console. "It still has power," she breathed. "If we can get it through the access tunnel, we escape." "Yes." "You sure?" "No," she said, "but I'm tired of being certain about the wrong things." The final preparations took hours. Elias reconfigured the guidance software. Vela scavenged coolant stabilizers. They worked in tandem, wordlessly, as if they had done so all their lives. While she calibrated the dampeners, he watched her, the precise movements of her fingers, the way she furrowed her brow. He felt the rising weight of all the things he wanted to say. "When we leave," he said softly, "what will we be?" She paused. "Not fugitives. Not warriors. Just, alive." "Is that enough?" "With you, maybe it's everything." By the time the ship powered to life, the ground trembled. "What is that?" Vela's eyes narrowed. They triggered a seismic pulse. "It's a sweep. They know someone's hiding here. We have 5 minutes, maybe less." Elias looked at the hatch. "Get in. Now. I'll fly. You shoot." He nodded. The ship launched. They hurtled through collapsing tunnels, dodging debris and seismic tremors. Vela's hands moved with precision. Elias manned the turret. Behind them, sirens screamed. In front of them, a sliver of sky. "We're almost there," she shouted. Picking up 2 pursuit signals. "Then let's give them a reason to quit." As the escape ship burst from the surface, the Zalani patrols fired. One shot grazed the wing. Another struck the rear stabilizer. "We're hit," Vela said, "but not dead. Hold on." They spun, engine sputtering. Elias rerouted power from weapons to stabilizers. They cleared the atmosphere. The stars opened up before them. Silence. "We made it," he said, barely believing it. "We did." He looked at her. "Are you okay? Ask me tomorrow." In the dark of space, they drifted. No destination yet. But together. Elias took her hand. You chose me. Vela leaned against him. And I'll keep choosing you. Until the stars burn out. The emergency lights on the old vessel flickered with weak amber tones as it drifted beyond the outer edges of Zalani territory. Elias Kane sat beside Vela on the cockpit floor, legs stretched out, shoulders nearly touching. They said nothing at first, the hum of the wounded engines their only company. We should have exploded back there, Elias said at last, trying to fill the silence with something other than the roaring in his head. Vela leaned her head back against the bulkhead, her voice tired but sharp. They grazed our fuel tank. A few millimeters closer, and we would have. So we're lucky. No, she corrected. We made choices. Luck is for gamblers. Elias turned to look at her. Her face, marked by exhaustion and soot, still radiated that same resilience he had come to rely on. She looked like a soldier, but she breathed like a human. Like a partner. We can't keep drifting forever, he said. We won't. I have coordinates. There's a shadow market station near the Kepler fringe. Off-grid. No allegiance. They sell parts. Identities. Time. Time we need. And time they sell. The trip took 23 hours. During that time, they talked little, saving oxygen and energy. Elias tended the wounds Vela hadn't admitted she had, a cracked rib, a laceration across her lower back, and a concussion brewing behind her left eye. Why didn't you tell me you were bleeding? He asked, angry in that way only people who care can be. Because if I had told you, you would have slowed down to help me. And we would have died. I would have carried you. And died. He hated that she was right. The Kepler station was built into a dead asteroid. Its outer shell looked like scrap, but inside, it was alive with noise and neon. Elias kept his hood up. Vela wore a cloak too, but her gait was unmistakable. Do you think anyone here would turn us in? Elias asked. Only if they thought they'd live long enough to collect. Vela found them a berth with a mechanic named Jarn, a tusked species who didn't care about the war as long as credits flowed. I need the stabilizer fixed, she said. And a new hull skin. Gonna cost you. We'll trade. With what? Knowledge. Vela shared Zalani navigation algorithms, the kind smugglers would kill for. Jarn agreed. Repairs began. They rented a single room, barely large enough for the two of them. Elias stood at the viewport, staring at the blinking ships beyond. Do you ever think about going back? He asked. No. Not even for revenge. For justice. Justice is a weapon people use to justify pain. I've had enough of it. He nodded. I keep thinking about Catherine, he admitted. How she died. How I swore never to forgive. Vela sat on the edge of the bunk, her voice low. Then you met me. And now I think forgiveness is the only thing keeping me human. The next day, they got the codes. New IDs. New bioscans. New names. You choose, Vela said, handing him the data slate. How about riven? Means broken. Yes. But it also means reforged. She smiled. Then I'm Mira Riven. And I'm Talon Riven. Husband and wife. It was a lie for now. But not entirely. The cost came the next morning. A bounty alert. Across the Kepler station, the signal played, images of Vela, now with a 10 million credit reward. Not dead, as the Zalani had reported. Not disgraced. Just wanted. High priority. Elias turned from the display. We have to go. We can't. Ship's not ready. Jarn needs another 16 hours. We might not have two. Then we fight. They held out in the hangar. Elias sealed the blast doors. Vela rigged plasma charges. A small group of bounty hunters tried to enter. Vela disabled 2 with precision shots. Elias took 1 down with a shock baton. By the end, the hangar was scorched. They were bloodied, bruised, breathing, but alive. The next time they saw stars, they were fleeing again. This time, not out of desperation, but choice. And on Vela's lap sat the data pad with coordinates for a new place. "There's a system," she said. "Kithra. Neutral. No standing fleet. Refugees from both sides. They need doctors. They need builders. And maybe," Elias added, "they need 2 people who stopped being enemies." Vela leaned her head on his shoulder. "Then let's go give them hope." Kithra was not what Elias expected. He imagined a war-torn shell of a planet, a graveyard orbiting a dead sun. Instead, the shuttle touched down on the edge of a jungle ridge where spires of translucent rock stretched into lavender skies. The air shimmered with heat and pollen. Strange birds cried overhead in tones that sounded almost musical. "This place is alive," Vela murmured beside him, her voice filled with wonder. Elias nodded slowly, feeling something deep in his chest loosen. It was the first time he'd seen Vela smile without calculation. "The war never reached here," she added. "Then it's the perfect place to begin." Kithra Station hadn't been designed so much as improvised. Built from salvaged colony modules, it clung to the cliffs in a sprawling web of ramps, walkways, solar panels, and prefabs. Humans, Zalani, and other species worked shoulder to shoulder, their uniforms long discarded. No one asked for pasts here. Only help. Elias introduced himself as Talon Riven, physician. Vela became Mira, engineer and logistics coordinator. They started with a 2-room tent near the edge of the bluff, overlooking a valley so green it hurt to look at after the dull grays of space. Within 3 days, Elias was running a triage unit out of an old cargo hauler. Vela was directing material shipments and repairing drone harvesters. "What we build here," she told him one night, "it has to be better than what we left." "It will be," he said. Word spread fast. About the medic who didn't ask where your wounds came from. About the former Zalani officer who offered her skills to anyone in need. And about their unspoken bond, something stronger than loyalty, more tender than obligation. Their clinic became the center of something larger. Refugees arrived by the dozens. Elias trained medics. Vela designed shelters and coordinated defenses. Not to fight, but to protect. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the jungle canopy, Elias found Vela standing alone by the overlook. "You're quiet tonight," he said, handing her a mug of spiced tea. "I keep thinking they'll come for me. That one day, a squad will drop through those clouds and everything will end." Elias stood beside her. "Then we face them together. And if we fall protecting something worth dying for." Vela turned to him, tears unshed in her eyes. "I never believed in redemption. Never thought someone like me deserved peace. But here, with you, I want to believe. Then believe. We earned this." She kissed him beneath the violet sky. Not because of desperation, but because she finally could. Over the next 2 months, Kithra blossomed. Solar farms lit the medical bays. Children played among the roots of luminous trees. Wounded soldiers from both sides worked shoulder to shoulder repairing old transports. One day, a human general's son and a Zalani diplomat's daughter stood hand in hand before Vela and Elias and asked if they would perform a bonding ceremony. "Me," Vela blinked. "You brought this place to life," the girl said. Elias smiled. "We'd be honored." Nights were still sometimes restless. Vela would wake in a sweat, reliving the things she had done. Elias never judged. He held her hand, whispered to her in the dark. "You are more than what they made you." In time, she believed him. A year passed. Kithra Station expanded into 3 zones. Trade routes formed. Alliances grew. A coalition sent a message to both human and Zilani governments. We will not be pawns anymore. We will be sanctuary. We will be peace. In the heart of the station, Vela and Elias opened a permanent clinic. They called it Haven. Its walls were white and clean. Its roof open to the stars. The first patient was a child. Not human. Not Zilani. But alive. And that was all that mattered. On the anniversary of their arrival, the people of Kithra held a celebration. There were no flags. No anthems. Only shared food, shared stories, and laughter. Someone asked Vela to speak. She stood on a stone dais, the jungle wind in her short-cropped hair, and said, I was once a weapon. A symbol of fear. I have burned cities and silenced voices. But now, I have built homes. I have raised shelters. I have healed, not with medicine, but with the choice to stop being what they told me to be. We all have that choice. And here, in this place, we make it every day. There was no applause. Only silence. And then the crowd stepped forward, one by one, to place their hands over their hearts. It was the highest gesture of respect. That night, on the roof of Haven, Vela lay beside Elias under the stars. Do you think the war will end? She asked. Someday. And us? What are we now? Elias turned to her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. We are proof that love can outlast hate. She smiled. Then let's keep proving it. And together, beneath a sky neither of them was born under, they closed their eyes. And dreamed.